Hello, everyone. My name is Jordan, and I like movies. When it comes to the art of filmmaking, there are various styles that elevate the art of cinema to the next level. Today, we're going to discuss two film theories that tie in together: auteur theory and feminist film theory. Let's get into it. If we start at the beginning of cinema, like we have with this class, one can observe that while many films over the years have been groundbreaking and legendary within their own right, cinema overall, particularly American cinema, has been problematic. When we look at films made in the early years, the majority of the content produced was made for a specific audience in mind: white, heterosexual men. But women were free to join their husbands at the movie theater. Just don't expect to see yourself on the screen outside much of a stereotype. But that comes a bit later. Auteur theory suggests that while filmmaking is a collaborative process, and while each position in the crew does serve their own purpose, the heartbeat of a production and the driving force is the director, much like how a book needs a novelist to be written. In auteur theory, filmmakers, specifically directors, often have recurring themes and messages present in their collective body of work. This gives us an insight to their psyche to help us better understand their creative process when making a movie. But let's take a closer look at some of those characteristics that go into auteur theory. This theory suggests that when a director is in creative control of their work, they become the sole visionary of that said work, often bringing a distinct style, emotion, or narrative to each of their films, and sometimes a part of themselves as well. So, a couple modern-day examples would be a filmmaker such as Quentin Tarantino, with his distinct style of nonlinear storytelling, graphic violence, often over the top, as well as being consistent with the type of music that he uses in his films, and sometimes his very questionable runtimes. Steven Spielberg is another great example of an auteur filmmaker, as his films feature the same themes of family, love, and adventure in motion pictures, such as Star Wars and E.T. the Extraterrestrial, as well as having distinctive camera shots, such as long and tracking shots. Another well-known director that we discuss in this class that follows such suit is Alfred Hitchcock. When you look at Hitchcock's collective body of work, you will notice patterns within his style of filmmaking, such as suspense and psychological thrill that is often the backdrop of all of his motion pictures. However, Hitchcock is not without his problems. In The Woman Who Knew Too Much adds a little bit of depth to this, noting how Hitchcock often places women in passive, victimized roles and subjects them to the male gaze, raising questions about how a director's personal vision can reinforce problematic ideologies and stereotypes. With that in mind, Hitchcock's films often viewed women as being objects of desire or mysterious, often giving them little to no detail about who they were or what purpose they served, other than being there for their male counterparts. For example, recurring themes used in Hitchcock's films were often voyeurism, as seen in The Rear Window, and the male gaze in Psycho, featuring the shower scene. For many years, women were subjected to hollow representations of themselves. That was until the 1970s and beyond, where women were given more complex roles. And that is where we tie in feminist film theory. With feminist film theory, it is easily explained with the Bechdel test, and that is to decide if there is an accurate representation of women in cinema. So with this test, a film must have at least two named female characters that are having a conversation, or at least mention the other through a third party, and their conversations must not revolve around men. A modern-day filmmaker examined using auteur theory is Greta Gerwig, and while she's only been writing and directing her own films for a little bit over a decade, her impact on the industry can be seen on the page and at the box office. For example, her movies center around female characters that are often questioning their own place in the world. In Lady Bird, the main character wishes to explore a world beyond the one in which she lives in. Same thing with Barbie. In that film, Barbie is unhappy with where she lives, and she doesn't want to be in the dream house forever. As for Little Women, the main character of Jo struggles to find her place in the world that has already laid out a life. Greta Gerwig has a distinct style, and one can gather just by watching her collective work that she brings a feminist approach to her style of filmmaking and storytelling. To wrap this up, while authentic representation has not always existed within cinema, various strides have been made over the years to ensure equality across all spectrums on the big screen. This has been Jordan Callison with Auteur Theory and Feminist Film Theory. Thanks for watching.